Alrighty, after day 2 here, late start, I had some stuff going on this morning, so we'll get at it, figure out where I left off. I can really tighten this up where it needs to be. Of course, if I had this other piece, I can hold it in the middle there. So I ordered last night I ordered from a local hose shop. I ordered 3 to 4 90 degree for this here. Should be able to go just straight into it with just the silicone coupler. Hopefully that works okay. I know sometimes the 90s aren't the best deal, but I'm not really planning on running, 60 pounds of boost or anything like that. I'm sure my horsepower goals will be met with probably 30 or less. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Might need change later, but I can do that. Okay. So I'm going to try and tighten this up really quick where it's at, because that's roughly where it needs to be. As it turns. Yeah, probably somewhere around there. Tighten up so I don't have to keep fighting. Alright. Now if I can find another piece. Don't let her fall. Okay, so now if I can get that to match up with that piece back there, somehow, throw this out here. Hey, I know. Alrighty. So how I usually like to do this is, it'd be nice if I had that other turbo mounted in the exact position. But I want to get this all mocked up or built first, and then I can hang the turbo off of that, and then everything else I can make with it, with that holding the turbo. Basically, it'll just be hanging off of this that way. Anyway, what I like to do when I'm building this stuff is get as much of it tight or fixed in place as you can get. That's just that loose. All this stuff is fairly loose, so I'll change a little bit. But get stuff in position, and then I take little cuts like this, and you can just rotate it around to where the stuff fits your other piece. So I know this is going to be sitting somewhere about like that. So it's telling me that this piece is cut. It's too much of an angle, which I thought it was too much of an angle. But you can also take something like that, loosen up that V-band, and rock it down. Now this can be pointing more at a downward angle, and this, you can rotate this around, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Yeah, I don't think it's going to still. I think it's still too much of an angle. But without having that turbo up, I don't know for sure. So, let's see. This piece is probably a little on the long side still. Maybe, maybe not. So I want that somewhere about there. Let's see, I might have to angle this even more. Or then you just fit a piece in here like this and figure out your rough angle. I like to do sometimes. I like to do some pie cuts on some pieces to get them in there. See, that's actually not that bad right there. It's not that bad. It's a little bit too steep of an angle, but it's not very much. I can just trim some off of one of the edges, back off the angle on it, and it'll be okay. And then I like to just tap the stuff up and get it all mounted in here, and then make sure that that's a decent position for the turbo or whatever it is that you're mounting. Yeah, it's only going to take a couple of degrees less, and that should fit decently there. I don't mind the turbo being just a little bit higher. Maybe I can get that just a little higher. I need to take a little bit of length off this. So what I'm going to do is cut this at a little bit of an angle. That'll lessen the angle of this piece effectively, how it matches up. Once you start getting this stuff close, if you throw both of your pieces on a wide band, snug them up a little bit so you can rotate them around, it helps a lot. At least it holds it in place, and you can just have it like that with the V-band early on and turn it around. At least that way you don't have to hold it on there and make sure that it's straight on there. It kind of does that for you. And once you get all your stuff tacked up and actual fitted, then a lot of times I'll just kind of sit back and look at it and see if I can see somewhere where I can make it simpler or straighter pipe or something like that. Usually my stuff ends up being decent enough that I just roll with it, but I'm not as picky as some guys are either. And my stuff is show cars. It's meant to work. Usually works pretty good. That's all I'm worried about. Okay, it might be in the money. Right there. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. There's a gap. Now I can feel with my finger. So I'm going to take that. Get rid of the gap back there. Move this around a little bit. See, it's still good. Okay. Still looks like it might work. So now, what I'll do is try to find Sharpie that I don't have up here. So, find Sharpie. You should have Sharpie within reach when you're doing this stuff. But I wasn't prepared. I didn't think it was that close. Okay. Get this all back in position, and then you're going to mark all the tubes. You're going to mark the alignment of them. That way you can take it down on your bench and tack weld them together You can also, once you get it up here like this, if you have a MIG welder handy, you can just tack it. I don't like to use MIG welders for this kind of stuff. I don't know. I'd just rather mark it and TIG weld the whole thing. That's just personal preference. Okay. Get that back piece is lined up where it needs to be, so I'm going to put a mark and just mark across it. That way you can find your lineup mark. Get back at the bench and make sure that mark is still lined up when you line up the second tube. And mark it. Okay, now what I'm going to do, so this is number one end, and this is number one end. That way I don't turn the tube around. Now I'm just doing little tiny tacks right now, because then I'm going to fit stuff up and not put any weight on it. And then if it actually fits decent, I'll tack it a little bit more significantly. But for right now, you just want it just super lightly tacked, because there's a good chance that stuff isn't going to fit exactly the way that I want it to. So I'll end up either breaking it back apart or cutting it back apart. And if you get too big of a tack, it just makes it a lot more work, and you end up with an uglier cut that you have to grind down or something later if you join that tube back together. So I prefer to just do a really tiny tack, just enough to hold the tube, and then fit it again, pull it off, and then give it a little more significant tack. So what I do when I'm just tacking these is I put them together, and the saw cuts are never perfectly straight, mostly because this is an ancient saw that was meant for wood originally, and my guides are basically gone. So it doesn't cut perfectly straight, but it's good enough. But you'll end up with stuff like this sometimes. That sucks. That might end up getting fixed, because that's going to suck to weld. But I just push the tube together and get a super tight spot, and then you melt it right there, and it'll just form together without any rod usually, and you're good to go. And then on the back side, you got to try and push it together as best you can. Which end? Put some plastic sheeting up to close up my door this morning. It's a lot warmer in here today. It's not warmer outside. Geez, I'm not breaking it. Maybe I put a little on this way. wires for. It goes down to ECU. I remember putting a wire in the ECU, but I don't remember what for. Gonna have to take care of it though. Do something to survive right there. That's another day. Not today. Okay. That's kind of smacking it up against, tight up against the oil filter. I need just a little less angle out of that mess. See if I can rotate it up at all. See if that'll help. Yes, that does help. Bring it out underneath it. Still clear, there we go. 3/4 of an inch of room on the oil filter, and the only thing that's really close to is that intercooler line, but that's going to change anyway. I call it good. I'll take it off and weld it up a little bit more and get that turbo hung. Then I can work on my oil drain for both of them, and the oil feed for the second one, which should be really easy. And I just got to mod that other turbo. I guess I need to do it. Probably should work on today before I even deal with the oil feed. I probably should work on a charge tube. That's going to be a bit of tube work. And later on down to there, that won't be that bad. No idea how I'm going to run it though, I guess. I don't know how much room I got between the batteries. I can snake her right in through here and then go down. I'm not sure that will work out very well. So I come up over and down, which is kind of what I had in my thoughts. It's going to be in the way of my air filter tube. Well, let's attack that in a few minutes once I get this thing tacked up a little better and mounted right. Piece sucks up a lot more heat. Yeah, I got that one pretty good. Now, anytime you're doing V-bands, the best way that I found to keep them from warping, this one here is a pretty significant flange. I think I could probably weld the whole thing without it being a problem. Plus, this ring that they've got back a ways, I think I could probably weld this without having a single problem. But the best way to do it every time to make sure you don't warp your flanges is whatever. If you've got a spare V-band that fits it and clamp, use that. But if you don't, whatever it's mating up to, like this, I'll hook up to the backside of the turbo, clamp it to whatever the opposing V-band it is. Clamp it to that and weld the entire thing until it's cooled completely down. Weld it with that in place. You won't have a problem with the stuff sealing unless you're just go crazy on the amperage and just do dumb stuff. You still want to kind of stitch weld it, do an inch or inch and a half. You can get away with a fair amount when you do it that way because it soaks up a lot of the heat. But you're going to want to do a section, then you're going to want to do a section on the backside, then you're going to want to come around, and just bounce around on it until you get the entire thing. It just helps spread the heat out, keep stuff from pulling. It's always a good idea anytime you're welding anything to do it that way. Tubing, stuff like this, once I get it really tacked in good, I'll just kind of go to town on it and weld it. Usually the section will get hot enough where it's bugging me through my gloves, so I'll stop on that section, move over to another part of the pipe while that other piece is cooling until that piece gets hot, and then come back and finish it. Tubing usually doesn't do much of anything. This stuff isn't really high tolerance or anything to where it doesn't really make a difference. But these V-band flanges, you've got to be really careful with. Another thing I really like about this particular VS Racing turbo is these flanges are really nice. Really nice. The way that this one stepped back like that fits perfectly on a 3-inch tube. It's really nice. That said, I'm not sure what that ring is supposed to be for, if it's a weld ring, like I'm using it for, or if it's for something else. If somebody actually knows what that is, feel free to chime in and let me know. It's the first time I've ever seen a flange like that. Maybe it's something, maybe it's not. Now let it come all the way back here. Makes this way too long again. It gives me more room for that too. So push them out. Okay, this part goes down a little bit more. You need to rotate it a little bit more so it fits down there. You want stuff to fit pretty good. Pretty straight. If you don't get straight, just put some pressure on the top of your hand to hold it. So you can get it off. Yeah, it's way better. Way better that way. And now I got some gap. That's what I want. A little bit of gap. Put my angle out just a touch, but I can fix that. So, as I said before, get this all in position. And mark it. So another thing I'm going to do with this, just so I can get one more thing completely done today and finish welded, is I'm just going to cut these nipple pieces off of the stock down pipe, and or not down pipe, charge pipe, whatever it is, and weld them on the ends of mine. So I'll be cutting the appropriate amount off. Normally I would just bring these to work, or bring my pipes to work, and do that to them, form them, but the way the tooling is that I have at work for getting 3-inch, I've got to have a short piece so I wouldn't be able to weld it all together. Since I have these, I'm just going to do it that way. So if you see me doing some stuff, I don't know what. Does it make sense? Always a good idea to deburr the inside of your tubes before you weld them together, like I didn't on some of this stuff already. It just keeps there from being a little bit of a remaining burr there that can break off and get into stuff. Alright, I'll tack this stuff off and then refit it. Make sure that it fits right. If it does, I'm going to finish weld it. I'll probably pull off that crossover pipe or whatever you call it. Finish weld it. Go in and you get nipple. Oh, look at that. Look at it. Not perfect. Okay. As usual, we get one in there. A little bit. No problem. Jam it in a little deeper. Actually, get a little bit more room, a little bit closer. Right there. That will work. Okay. Now, we can pull this out for finish weld. Pull that other piece off for finish weld. I think I'll pull the hole off so I can bring it to work and fix it tomorrow. And then I might just call it a day. I wanted to get the drain. No wonder I don't have material to do that with anyway. So maybe before I pull the hole off, I'll figure out what it needs. What it needs as far as bends and stuff, and I'll just bend up into tube. That work. Find that socket I dropped. Oh, I have a part. You want that? That's the end. Circle. Circle. That money bucks? We'll get your up. Okay. I forgot to hit record earlier when I was finishing up the welding, but it was just welding just like the rest, so didn't really miss much. So, pulling this off, I measured the oil drain. It looks like I just need a straight piece. I just need to lengthen it and basically go straight up. Doesn't really surprise me. Yeah. Now I'm just going to weld the rest of this up.